Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the crowdfunded translation project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of this
But welcome everybody, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, banking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and, well, it's been another fucking week, hasn't it? The Supreme Court actually decided, and it wasn't unanimous, that the 14th Amendment exists, which was remarkable. I mean, what's remarkable about that, because I don't think people are so used to just fringe fash bullshit dominating the debate that it's actually kind of hard for a lot of people who don't follow something specific to realize when something truly is fringe. The position that the 14th Amendment's birthright citizenship clause does not, in fact, provide birthright citizenship is so fringe that even fucking white nationalists have traditionally talked about how the 14th Amendment was actually illegitimate and referred to basically anyone but white people like themselves as 14th Amendment citizens. Not just people who got citizenship under birthright citizenship, but also like black people, for example. The idea that the 14th Amendment does not do the thing that it says when it comes to citizenship is not a mainstream right-wing idea. Like, this is not something that is seriously up for debate. So the fact that they even took that case was already just a fucking disgrace. There is a mechanism for dealing with cases where there never should have been an argument in the first place and where it does not require the full treatment. You just issue an unsigned per curiam opinion saying, yeah, obviously this is bullshit. They do this occasionally. This would be an obvious case, and the fact that they didn't just shows you where we are at the moment. How's everybody doing, chat, as I just look at what we've got to watch today? Liberals have been having a normal one over the fact that some DSA-endorsed candidates have won primaries, won elections by what do you call it, really? By saying that they're going to do things that most people would like to have done. This is the unfair mechanism by which these people got elected. Just acting like somebody who drinks water and breathes air. And that has already freaked out a lot of liberals. Jon Favreau is one of them.
What is the Democratic Party if not its voters? And what we saw yesterday evening. Were Democrats across the city turning out and voting for a new kind of politics.
A slate of 3 candidates endorsed by Zoran Mamdani won their Democratic primaries in deep blue House districts. In the 7th district, Democratic Socialist Claire Valdez.
Oh, wow. It's very early for link spam. Goodbye, link spam. Yes. Ciao.
Won the open seat.
I'm hoping this is the right clip.
For a pretty progressive opponent endorsed by the retiring Democratic member of Congress. In the 10th district, progressive city comptroller Brad Lander defeated incumbent Dan Goldman in a race that was largely about Israel. Both men are Jewish. Lander ran as a self-proclaimed liberal Zionist, but
I will say that has not gotten as much attention as it ought to. Everyone was the fact that he's getting a whole lot of undeserved cred over the fact that he endorsed Mamdani. But actually, Mamdani should have been getting side-eye over the fact that he accepted that endorsement.
But hit Goldman on voting against legislation to block military aid to Israel and taking money from pro-Israel lobbying groups. And then the biggest upset of the night, 4-term Representative Adriano Espaillat, head of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and the first undocumented immigrant to serve in Congress, lost his Harlem Bronx district in an upset to a leftist community organizer named Daria Liza Avila Chevalier. a democratic socialist who also believes in abolishing prisons.
Okay, I think this is the one.
Police, and all deportations. She might be the most left-wing candidate.
Yeah, let's just remember in these primaries, if you go back to when AOC won her first primary, up until then, she had said that she was in favor of abolishing ICE. She didn't really say what that meant. She just sort of allowed people to assume that she was saying the same thing that everybody else who was saying abolish ICE was saying. And then she won her primary, and it turned out she wanted to just rebrand ICE.
To ever win a Democratic primary in our lifetime. There's been a lot of focus on her old tweets, which she has deleted and mostly apologized for. I'm fine with that. My general position is to give people a chance.
I mean, I haven't actually heard any tweets of hers that she should have apologized for or deleted.
Want to take back something they said or posted? Certainly would love to take back things that I've posted. Here's where I have a problem. She has not apologized for attending an anti-Israel rally on October 8th.
Yeah, okay, this is the one I was hoping it was.
October 8th, 2023. A rally that was condemned by Zoran Mamdani.
To his eternal discredit, it's worth noting. So the idea here is that she should have apologized for going to a rally in opposition to the genocide that was about to happen. That anyone paying attention at least considered fairly probable, simply based on what the Israeli leadership was saying by that. So she's supposed to apologize. He's pissed off because she was right. That's what he's pissed off about here.
AOC and Brad Lander.
Oh, wow, fuck all three of them, actually.
The other problem I have, she sat for an interview with the New York editorial.
It's funny that he just said a minute ago takes that he would like to take back. And then he immediately goes on to say, this candidate, she never apologized for opposing the genocide before it really got going. That's a terrible thing. And look, Mamdani and AOC and Lander condemned it. And it's like, wow, like, fuck you. That's a take that is going to age like fucking fior di latte.
Board last week where she said she's against all deportations.
Good.
She's for open borders because,
good.
Quote, bordering is a very modern construct, actually.
I would hope that she said more than that, but she's not wrong there. Okay. She's apparently saying this after winning her nice.
To abolish prisons and refused to say, when asked, she got 4 different chances on this, refused to say that a convicted murderer should be sentenced to any jail time at all. Maybe she...
Well, wait, okay, so she said she wanted to abolish prisons, so why exactly were you expecting her to say, oh, well, we will abolish prisons except for the ones that we don't have? Like, the point of prison abolitionism is not abolition except when we decide there's somebody really bad.
Turns over a new leaf in Congress and, like, her voting record doesn't match some of these more extreme positions. I hope so.
The more extreme positions of, say, for example, not wanting to have deportations. Like, let's remember, the majority of the population is on the team of abolish ICE. Whenever the ICE actually does what ICE does visibly, the support for getting rid of it altogether grows because people can actually see what it is. That's the thing, like, when Democrats use it, they do it a little bit more quietly, so you can't actually see it. They do it in the dead of night. They do it in situations where it isn't as visible, and so they manage to deport a huge number more people, and they avoid having a significant segment of the population up in arms about it. But then she's the other more extreme position, remember, is where she went to a rally against the genocide that Israel said they were gonna do. Right, the one that they said that they were gonna do right before they started doing it. Why the fuck would anyone apologize for that? I mean, what we've seen since then is people who were on the wrong side of that, who were acting like this was okay what Israel was doing, that there was nothing to be all that concerned about, that actually the thing is all the stuff that Israel made up and accused Hamas of. And those people have been finding ways to backpedal and try to sound like they're on the right side of things. And why the fuck, when those people are trying to backpedal and try to seem like they aren't just complete monsters, why exactly would she be apologizing for getting it right in the first place?
But I think the
Bonsoir.
reason I bring this up is because when Democrats get questions about this, I think the answer is easy and important to give.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the answer, because the answer really ought to be, wow, she puts us all to shame.
Which is that she currently holds a range of views that go from moronic to abhorrent.
Okay, John. That's an interesting range there. So, okay, being right about the genocide from the start, is that more what you'd call a moronic view or an abhorrent view? What about, like, not saying that, we're saying we shouldn't do ethnic cleansing, that we shouldn't have ethnic cleansing cops? Is that one of the moronic ones or the abhorrent one? Like, he has listed a bunch of views that he's just telling on himself here. How did it go?
And not only those views not align with most Democrats in the country.
Actually, that's not true. That's simply, I mean, he's using the term in a way I do not use it. He's using it to mean the people who vote for Democrats, not just the people who actually have a say in the party. I use it to mean just the people who have a say in the party, and so when I talk about Democrats that they could fit in a stadium, they could fit in the members' enclosure of a fucking stadium and there would be space left over, it would be comfortable. When he's talking about it, he's talking about the people who vote for them. And the people who vote for them, we have polls, John. Look at them sometime. Abolishing ICE is the mainstream position. 80% disagree with you on Israel. Like, these are actually views that have that are a lot more consistent with the people who actually vote for Democrats than they are
nearly all Democrats in the country. Actually, most elected Democratic socialists. But, like,
well, that doesn't look good on them. I mean, they should align with her.
I don't even think they align with, like, a lot of the people who probably voted for her. So
wait, okay, so her positions have been known. This isn't, like, they didn't just notice that she had said these things publicly. This has been a subject of discussion for a while now. And we're supposed to think that the people who voted for her did not know that these are the things that she stands for? Could it possibly be that maybe people voted for her? See, I know that John's used to the fact that for the most part, Democrats get elected despite where they stand. They get to, everyone's like, yeah, he absolutely sucks, but have you seen the disgusting fucking toilet monster that he's running against? We can't let that fucker in. Yeah, so, yeah, okay, he doesn't want us to have healthcare, and he seems to want to blow up the world and starve Cubans and stuff like that, and have more, and just make everything cops and censor the internet, but at the very least, he's not that fucking guy. Like, he's so used to the idea of people just voting for Democrats despite what they stand for, but that the idea that somebody might vote for them because of what they stand for doesn't even occur to him. Oh, well, be careful with your back. I mean, that stuff can be awful. I speak from much experience. Oh, yeah, of course they pretend the working class doesn't exist, and they pretend the polls don't exist, which is the thing that gets me. Because if you look at the polls, you would not be shocked that somebody like this is winning. because the things she says have a lot more to do with what most people think should happen than what somebody like Jon Favreau, a rich fucker who was in the Obama administration, thinks.
Oh, like, I think people should you just gotta say that.
Yeah, I just love that.
Trump supporters voted for the...
Okay. Yeah, imagine in this, on day 1000 and, well, okay, this is 7 days ago. So day 993 of a genocide that has resulted in the murder of 700,000 people, roughly. Not long after the UN came up with a report saying that Israel was systematically targeting Palestinian children. Systematically targeting them. And Jon Favreau is saying that Chevalier should have apologized for being against this in the first place. Like, we're doing a premature anti-fascism again. That's what we're doing. This is like this was a thing back in the late 30s, early 40s, before the US joined the war, where people who were against fascism before 1941 were looked at with a lot of suspicion. They were called premature anti-fascists because they wanted to fight Franco. They wanted to stop fascism back before the US was decided to be against fascism for a bit. And that's what Jon Favreau is doing. She hasn't apologized for being against the genocide. But what about all the good things the genocide has brought us? Like, what? Like, shut up, John. The Democratic Party hates its life support system. Like, candidates like this are the only reason anyone gives a fuck about them. They're the only thing that is like dragging the Democratic Party in the direction of relevance. I mean, and the thing is, we've been through this before. This was actually kind of the situation in 2016 too. Nobody wanted to know the Democrats. Nobody was impressed with them. The only Democrat who had any kind of positive rating in the polls was Bernie Sanders, and the Democrats were busy coming up with all sorts of ways to suggest that anyone who liked him must actually be a Russian spy. And, they were hashtagging the resistance, and then anytime people actually resisted, they would condemn them and say that they should be sent to prison. And everyone's like, yeah, fuck these people. And they managed to, be the nominal opposition to a historically unpopular president. And they didn't benefit from the fact that everybody hated the president. Yes, they will absolutely save us. And then, you had these DSA-endorsed candidates, AOC et al., come into the fray, and all of a sudden, that became the thing. Look at these Democrats that have shown up, these new Democrats who want things that most people want, and sound like they came from this planet. And, all of a sudden that was the thing. It's like, oh, wow, we're going to democratize the Democratic Party now. It's going to change. It's going to save us. Everything's going to be fine, y'all. Sort of shit. And that managed to sort of drag them back to a certain amount of relevance, quite unwillingly. And that got us fucking Joe Biden and genocide and all that wonderful stuff. And now they're doing the same shit again. Like, ugh. Hey, Tomas. So, speaking of libs having a normal one, David Pacman thinks Trump has no way out now. He's been saying some version of this for, years now. I don't know how anyone still watches somebody who manages to get it this wrong so often. Maybe everybody watching him at this point has a stream where they take the piss out of him. But, okay, let's have a look.
There's something I've been thinking about lately that I don't think gets enough attention, which is that Donald Trump has created a political trap for himself. And
Brianna interview with PSA guy? Tell me more. I am not familiar with the interview or the do you mean PSA is in public service announcement, or?
like a lot of the problems Trump has, it's completely self-inflicted. Think back to what Donald Trump told people during the campaign. Inflation he was going to fix, wars he was going to end, definitely not start any new ones. The economy would boom, he was going to solve trade.
He was going to solve trade.
He was going to fix crime, and he was also going to fix the border. And according to Trump...
Okay, so he made campaign promises, and there were a lot of lies in them. Okay, so far, that there's nothing particularly earth-shattering in this revelation. Go on.
Actually, every problem in the United States existed because Joe Biden was incompetent, or maybe it was Obama's incompetence before Trump's first term. And to fix these complicated problems, all we had to do was put Donald Trump back in office. And this is
so what is the idea that he's now screwed because he hasn't fixed any of the problems he said he was gonna fix? Like, is this guy so fucking naive that he thinks that works? Oh, that Brianna. I was thinking Brianna Wu.
I believe the trap comes in. Once you tell people every problem is somebody else's fault, and then you become president, you don't have anybody else to blame anymore. He's still doing it.
Well, see, this incidentally is why I think it actually suited the Democrats to lose the 2024 election. Because they knew a lot of this stuff was more or less inevitable if things continued the way it was going to, and they wanted things to continue the way that they were. And it was better to have somebody else in charge. I actually, in fact, there was a leak. There was some anonymous source anyway from the Democratic Party who was quoted in DropSite a few weeks ago saying exactly this, that they were actually kind of happy with how things were going, and especially happy that they weren't in charge while it was going that way.
But every problem that still exists is now happening on your watch. And if you trained everybody to believe presidents are the ones responsible for every problem, you put yourself...
Well, wait, okay. Yeah, and I will say yes, he has certainly done that, but he didn't invent that. We are also supposed to act like basically everything is his fault. And the one thing we're never supposed to do is actually look at structural and historic causes. Because if you look at structural and historic causes, and you look at the fact that a lot of this stuff has been moving in this shitty direction for this entire century so far, and sometimes even longer than that, sometimes since about 1973, sometimes since about 1980, well, then all of a sudden you start to say maybe the problem is not going to be solved by electing any of these fucking people, because it seems to suit them just fine for this problem to continue to exist.
In a situation where when there are still problems and you're the president, you have to pretend everything is solved. You can't admit, well, negotiations with Iran, they're not going so well.
Well, yeah, but he also... See, this would all matter. Oh, okay. Interesting. What did they talk about? Is this something that would be good to watch on the stream? Like, because the people that he has cultivated as a fan base don't give a shit. They really, actually, for the most part, don't care what's going on. They just like, they like the things that suck, for the most part. They don't care. I mean, a lot of this suits them.
I wanted prices down, they're still too high, or a policy's not working the way I expected. he can't even admit something is simply taking longer than he promised. Because as soon as he does...
Well, I mean, he's so right here. I mean, when politicians lie in this country, that's their career over. Their career is just totally over. How much fast shit did Brianna Joy Gray get into? Because she does like to do a little fast shit. I mean, when I hear somebody walking out of an interview with her, I'm wondering... Was she gonna, like, speak... Did she speak favorably of... God, what's that guy's name? Oh, shit. The horrible stand-up comedian guy who was with TYT and then left and then just became straight up fash on his own show. And God damn it, what is his name?
He admits that the guy who was supposedly going to fix everything hasn't fixed everything. And if the problems are the responsibility of whoever is president today, it must be that he is responsible. So instead, every announcement is the greatest, every negotiation is fantastic, it's going so phenomenally well, it's all historic. The crowds are in...
This is just two different versions of the same bullshit, though. Because when it comes... Jimmy Dore, thank you! I knew it was a J and a single-syllable D name. Jimmy Dore, thank you. Yeah, she's a big fan of his. But this is just another version, like, pretending everything's great... is just another version of pretending that the only reason you can't do all the wonderful things that people are expecting you to do is because somehow, like through bad vibes or something, an opposition party that's in the minority is stopping you. I mean, it's all a way to deflect responsibility, and it's all a way to keep this on a very simplistic level where it's just, ooh, yes, Jimmy Dore. God, that name was on the tip of my tongue. Keep this on this simplistic level where it's all, oh, well, if we elect that guy, everything will be okay. Well, no, if we elect her, it'll be okay. And, oh, it's, just, none of this is how that works.
Enormous. Polls he doesn't like are fake. Every criticism is a hoax. It is a completely unsustainable way to govern.
Unsustainable in what way? I mean, if you mean that it's causing an absolute disaster on numerous levels, yes. But if you're talking about if it's hurting him with his core of supporters, that's much less clear. They're kind of cool with it. They don't really give a shit whether any of this is true.
Because reality is eventually going to catch up to you. And what
it hasn't yet.
Oh, Trump exaggerates. Yeah, Trump exaggerates.
I mean, like, the one time it looked like there might be a little bit of reality catching up to him was when he was actually being prosecuted. And he even got fucking convicted in New York. And then they just kind of pulled back because, oh, now he's going to be a presidential candidate. We can't sentence a guy who's going to be a presidential candidate. We got to wait. And that allowed him to walk around saying that it was fake news that he'd been convicted of, 34 felonies? They should have just fucking sentenced him then and there. Like, but they didn't. They didn't. And the result of that is, yeah. Consequences continue not to be a thing. Rich and powerful people, especially people in the political class, but also just fucking rich fuckers in general, ever have to seriously worry about.
When a president convinces himself that admitting a problem exists is politically impossible, he becomes much less likely to actually solve the problem. Because to solve a problem, you have to acknowledge that it exists. And that is what competent leaders do. I remember when Barack Obama became president, this was like 80, 90 years ago, a long time ago. I was just a young boy at that point. Obama became president, and he started to lift the country out of the financial crisis.
Well, no, he started to lift Wall Street out of the financial crisis. A lot of us never left it. Like, I mean, a lot of people's incomes never recovered from that shit. The translation agency has never been the same. Industry has never been the same. I can tell you that from bitter experience. So, I mean, this is about the worst example you could come up with. Because the response, the Obama administration and the Democrats' overall response to the global financial crisis was to look at the results of just utterly deregulating Wall Street and of getting rid of Glass-Steagall and basically letting these pricks do whatever they wanted, and then to give people a stern lecture about how, actually, no, we can't be we cannot allow this to make us start thinking that we should regulate Wall Street. That would be, if we allow this to make us start thinking we should regulate Wall Street, then the terrorists win, or some shit. And so, like, an absolutely historic moment in terms of the opportunity to really regulate those pricks and, you know, impose some consequences on them. In fact, Obama was quoted going to a meeting, some like general meeting of senior Wall Street figures, and saying, look guys, I'm the one standing between you and the pitchforks. And that is how he conducted himself on that issue, which is why we're actually in the same shit. That's why nothing was solved. That's why the exact same shit can still happen again, just with different bogus assets. Because he saw himself as protecting Wall Street from regulation, from the irrational mob who think that maybe you shouldn't be able to just sell bankrupt homeowners' mortgages as investment-grade paper and then get bailed out by the government when that eventually goes south. So this is not a great example he's already kicking off with, but okay, go ahead, Dave.
In sort of like the defense of John McCain, in a way, the country was lifting out of that crisis likely in 2009, 2010, regardless, but certainly Barack Obama helped it along and didn't stand in its way.
Yeah, no.
But even after that, when Obama ran for re-election in 2012 against Mitt Romney, Obama said, we've made a lot of progress getting out of the Great Recession. But the economy isn't working for everybody. We have work to do.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the reason he had to say this, the reason even the most right-wing Democrats occasionally have to say this, like we were looking last week at the so-called Promise to America, and one of the first things it says is that actually it turns out, you know how we were talking about shared prosperity for decades now, and how all the rising tide was lifting everybody's boat. Yeah, it turns out actually a lot of people have been drowning that whole time. It was bullshit. See, they have to acknowledge that actually a lot of people are screwed because the people who are likely to vote for them are amongst the people who are screwed over. So that isn't an admission in the same way, because they have to acknowledge it. It's what makes them seem relatable to acknowledge it. If you, on the other hand, are trying to rely exclusively on the votes of people who are the winners in that situation, then you don't need to say a damn thing about it. And, in fact, a lot of the time, like, a lot of these right-wing think tanks that the Democrats listen to encourage them to just sort of pretend that they only have to fight over the votes of rich people. And so they can just sort of pretend that the real problems these days are like that croquet mallets are not as well made as they used to be or some shit.
To do. That's what a competent and mature leader is able to do. You identify what's working, you identify what you've done right, but you also say, here are things we need to do more of. It's not perfect yet. We haven't totally solved this problem. Trump is the opposite. He, first of all, never acknowledges that he hasn't completely solved the problem, but he backs himself into a corner.
See, yeah, but the thing is he really backing himself into a corner, though? Has it really hurt him? I don't see how it has. he's back in office a second time, despite the fact that nobody actually likes this prick, except for like a handful of white nationalist freaks who could never swing an election, except that the Democrats managed to come up with people to run against him who people like even less.
Admit reality, it is a dangerous thing to do politically because it conflicts with this mythology you've created.
Oh my god. Okay, that was confusing for a second. That's what... This is the DoorDash woman. She looks like Pauline Hanson. She isn't Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson is an Australian politician from Queensland who was sort of Donald Trump before Donald Trump was Donald Trump. And I didn't notice this at the time, but Pauline Hanson's been on the news a lot in Australia, and I have a lot of Australian friends, so I follow that. And now I'm looking, I was like, holy shit. I thought for a second, I was like, when was he standing with Pauline Hanson, and why is she so underdressed?
Yourself. And this is the MAGA trap. He promised to solve everything quickly, so completely and totally, that he now cannot acknowledge when something isn't going according to plan.
No, but see, what makes something a trap is that you get stuck in it, and that's bad for you. We have not actually seen where this causes him any problems, because he is perfectly content to just pretend that everything's fine. He is perfectly content to start some shit with Iran that he couldn't finish, and then just declare victory, even though anyone paying attention knows that he was just like tucking tail and running away, because it turned out that actually the opposition were stronger and had more resolve than the US gave them credit for.
And if you cannot admit that there is a problem, it is going to be extraordinarily difficult to fix it. And
what makes you think he wants to fix the problem, though? I mean, you look at the things that he's actually making an effort, that he treats as real problems that he's trying to fix, and it's like the fact that trans people exist, the fact that there are brown people, the fact that there are Palestinians, something that he and actually Joe Biden tend to agree with is a major problem that they both want to solve in a final sort of a way. You look at the things that he actually treats as problems, that's what he sees all this other shit as distractions from that, very clearly.
I was like thinking of the right way to say it. We might call them idiosyncratic outcomes, where you...
yeah, he has absolutely been mythologized, which is just, it's wild, because when you actually think back on that time, he was... remember, this was the time that Occupy happened. And Occupy happened because, as the slogan went, Wall Street got bailed out, we got sold out. You know, this was actually, a lot of the time we sort of, a lot of people sneer at Occupy these days, and there was a lot of dodgy shit that went on at Occupy. In fact, a lot of the modern fascists in this country got their start in Occupy. A lot of dodgy people. Caleb Maupin, for example, made his first attempt at cult formation in Occupy. But what was huge about that was that under a Democratic president, there was a working class protest, a mass national protest movement over inequality, which usually that doesn't, historically that didn't happen because Democrats were actually generally able to sort of bottle that up with a few promises to make things a little bit better, a little bit of everybody knows how hard it is to put food on the table, everybody knows how hard it is to deal with these insurance companies, that sort of thing, and then just not fucking do anything about it. And it didn't work. And it didn't work because people were that pissed off, and it was the beginning of people realizing that they had projected a whole lot of expectations onto this guy that had absolutely nothing to do with who he was and where he stood.
To have ended the same war 40 times. That only happens in a world you've created where you can't just say, yeah, things are going kind of screwy here. This is not the situation we want to be in. And
well, I mean, part of it is the U.S. does not. I mean, I don't think that if it wasn't him, that the U.S. would be admitting defeat there, even though that is exactly what has happened. I mean, I've been translating this this interview from 1969 with Salvador Allende, talking about his trip through Vietnam, Korea, and Cuba. And he's talking about, the U.S. war against Vietnam, which was still very much going on at the time, and remarks that essentially everybody knows the U.S. has been defeated on the ground, that the National Liberation Front controls most of the territory in the so-called South Vietnam by that point, but that the U.S. simply was trying to find a way out that was not an open admission of defeat, and there wasn't one. And this is exactly this, and it took years as a result of that. And millions of people were killed as a result of that. And that is very similar to what's been going on with the U.S. and Israel in the region, in the Arab-Iranian region, for the past few years. They keep getting humiliated, and they've never managed to restore deterrence, but they can't admit that. Because to admit that is to just open the door to the sort of post-American era in the region, which is, I mean, we're already going to be there. That's inevitable, but they don't want to admit that. They want to hang on as long as possible, and so they would be finding some way to bullshit their way through this too, if it was Democrats there.
I don't like that this is the way it's going, and I wish it were going faster. You can't do that when you have basically made the president the all-powerful, either for good or for bad. You have to then claim everything is perfect and everything is resolved. Or, as another example, you cannot say, I believe the terrorists...
No, yes, he has absolutely said nothing. He has said very much nothing about the genocide. He's still saying nothing about it. And his entire discussion of the war of aggression against Iran has been about what a shitty deal it is for the U.S. It's like, well, maybe the U.S. shouldn't have been, should have been denied the dignity of a deal in the first place.
Are good long term, but they are causing real problems for people today. If this is your worldview, instead you have to say, foreign countries are paying the tariffs. And it's like,
and again, see, this is not an example you want to use if this is the argument that you're trying to make. Ben Shapiro, I think, is more personable. Which is not saying much. I'm not saying he is personable, just more. Just more personable. God, that is a terrible freeze frame I just gave him. Look at him here. Looks like he's about to sell you oregano and say it's weed. With that facial expression. But the thing is, that's a very good example of how this hasn't cost him. Saying, well, the line about, foreign countries are the ones going to pay the tariffs or whatever. Because that did not actually hurt him with his people. Because they don't mostly seem to give a shit, really. They don't really give a shit whether what he says is true or not, because they consider believing it to be some sort of a mark of honor. They are weird-ass white nationalist freak fucks.
No, they're not. Talk to any company that imports raw materials and they will tell you, before the tariffs, I just paid for the stuff and I paid for the shipping. After the tariffs, I'm paying for the stuff and the shipping and also the tariff. I'm paying for it. It's not China paying for it. It's not Bangladesh or whoever.
No, we've already been through this, though. That did not hurt him. Not with anyone who he was ever, who he had any kind of support from.
I'm paying for it. You get these idiosyncratic outcomes when you are not
idiosyncratic
the reality of the situation, and then it gets us to the discussion about gas prices.
Okay, so not being willing to acknowledge the reality of the situation, you mean sort of like the main line of the Democratic Party has been to just pretend that their entire base has not realized that they're all guilty of genocide, with like literally 3 honorable exceptions. And so, like, I mean, this document leaked this past week for Project 2029, and this is like the right-wing Democrats' plan for post-election 2028, assuming they win it. And it's all about internet censorship and getting rid of Section 230 and basically clamping down on the ability to have any kind of a democratic conversation of any kind that isn't mediated by the ruling class in a much more active way. Like, I mean, there's a lot wrong with, the way algorithms distort these spaces and all that kind of shit, but it's still way more democratizing than the situation before all this, when we couldn't have, like, this conversation. I don't know, I would not be surprised if he has, in fact, read all of this. I mean, I imagine, for example, that he's read the book by David Pakman that is up there.
Where for over a decade, I've been saying, for the most part, presidents don't affect gas prices, except 3 things they can do. Gas tax holiday, release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve,
start wars,
or go to war with a country that either has or controls oil supply.
Or just start proxy wars in the region where a huge amount of oil comes out. Like, anything that gives oil companies an excuse, really.
Donald Trump did one of those things, but Trump can't operate in that world. And
yeah, he does. He actually seems to operate pretty well in that world. Like, I mean, it's amazing how many sort of prominent liberals can go through all of this for this long and look at, and sometimes even acknowledge that his supporters are basically a cult, and not understand that part of what that means is that it does not actually hurt him to contradict himself completely. It does not actually hurt him to say things that are just obviously not true, because the people he cares about don't give a shit. They were never really in it to solve these problems in the first place. They were in it because he gives them an excuse to do racisms, to be, like, fucking transphobic and shit. Although, actually, even amongst Republican voters, the war on trans people has not historically been particularly popular. That has been very much something that the elite of the party have been pushing.
So he cannot simply acknowledge that that's what's going on, and the people around him can't acknowledge it either. Every once in a while it slips out. Earlier in the show we had the clip of Kevin Hassett going, well, stuff at Walmart's more expensive because gas is more expensive. Yeah, very, very separate.
Well, yes, and also because Walmart likes to make profits.
Separated from the active voice of because Trump did it, but at least he's acknowledging the causative flow of the entire thing. This is the MAGA trap. I don't expect that Trump is ever going to change, and I don't think they're ever going to get out of that trap.
Well, what makes it a trap, though? I feel like he probably has said that they were a cult, but he still does not want to take that where it actually goes, because he has this, he has this just generally this liberal obsession with rational debate as and just generally with rationalism as how anyone engages with reality, and fascists don't. And the result of that is it's actually, what they have to say on the subject is really worthless. But speaking, somebody said the name Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro wants to abolish the UN, which surprises me because the UN has been allowing the US to get away with all the things that he wants the US to get away with. Like, what's his problem with the UN, actually? The UN has not stopped the genocide in Palestine. That is very dear to his heart, the genocide in Palestine. It's his favorite genocide. The UN has not stopped the war of aggression against Iran, quite to the contrary. The UN has not done anything to stop this mass murderous rampage. Does Pac-Man support Mamdani? I have no idea. I have a feeling he probably would say things that were vaguely supportive of him now. Whether he was supportive of him before he won the election is another question, because a whole lot of Democrats were not supportive of him then. They were actually, like, scaremongering around him.
To help build the United Nations to prevent World War III. But we ended up with a global HOA that sends angry letters and loses your money and lets the worst people in the neighborhood sit on the board. And
yes, like the US, for example.
In your life. So yes, it is time for America to...
You see, the thing is, homeowners associations actually have power. Like, if you piss off a homeowners association because you painted your mailbox the wrong color, they can get a literal lien on your house. They can potentially foreclose on you if you don't pay whatever bullshit fine they've charged you. The UN does not have that power, and the UN does not have that power because of the Permanent Security Council members, one of which is the US, which is why the UN is absolutely powerless against the United States.
And the United Nations. Tear down the building in New York, turn it into a park, so the leftists in Manhattan can finally go outside and touch some grass. The squirrels in that park would have a significantly better record of creating international peace than the bureaucrats inside the UN building today.
Well, I mean, okay, so the issue, Ben wants peace. Ben wants peace, chat. So if the issue is international, well, the US is the one that's starting all the fucking wars. So the problem really is that the UN is not in a position to provide a counterforce to the US. So maybe let's just get rid of the Security Council.
After more than a century of failed internationalist experiments, the verdict is in. The UN does not stop wars, does not stop atrocities, it does not stop dictators. So why...
Since when do you have anything against any of those three things, Ben?
Are we all still pretending it does any of those things? It actually helps all of those people. Let's go back to where it all began, a liberal internationalist fantasy. In the wake of World War I, dueling visions of a future world order began to emerge. World War...
That's just the same guy, though.
Well,
actually, I mean, that's kind of fitting, considering the people who actually got to have such visions.
The old system of sprawling empires, a new system of nation-states began trying to find a way to coexist.
A new system of nation-states? Wait. He thinks that nation-states were new in the 20th century?
World War II. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. The 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, had a vision. A beautiful vision. World peace. The equality of nations.
Well, yeah, except not. Because a lot of those small nations that the World War I was supposedly fought for their, that was the slogan. It's for the freedom of small nations. And so a lot of small nations actually kind of showed up at his door. Ireland and Vietnam, and I think Haiti as well. And he just told them all to fuck off.
But hashing everything out at a magical legislature called the League of Nations. This was the precursor to the UN. The League of Nations proposal had a particular clause called Article 10, which stipulated that if any member of the League were attacked, everybody else would then jump in to protect them, sort of like NATO, except for the whole world. Which sounds nice in a Princeton seminar, but is actually totally insane, and also at odds with the United States Constitution. At the time, Senator Henry Kennedy...
Well, actually, it is not at odds with the United States Constitution. Because the United States Constitution has a clause in it, in Article 6, Section 2, that makes international law part of the supreme law of the land. So, yeah, it actually augments the U.S. Constitution.
Lodge read Article 10 and said, hold up a second. This means that an international body now has the power to decide if Americans ought to go to war. It guts Senate war powers and hands them to a Council of Foreigners.
Well, wow, I mean, Ben cares so much about Senate war powers.
Agreed, and the Senate refused to ratify the League of Nations covenant, and the U.S. sat out of the international body that the president had originally proposed to the rest of the world. The League of Nations continued to exist, by the way, it just had no power, and it did nothing to prevent World War II. The League basically was completely defunct for the entire rise of Nazi Germany, the rise of Soviet Russia.
Wait, the rise of Soviet... Wait... When does he think that Soviet Russia rose? The League of Nations was not actually there yet. And actually, of those two, the Western countries actually sent an invasion force after World War I to Russia in an attempt to restore the Tsar, murdered tens of thousands of people, and lost.
And the rise of fascist Italy. So then World War II breaks out. You know, that massive global war the League was designed to prevent. In fact, there is a case to be made that without the illusion of collective security that restrained particularly Britain, France, and the United States, that
wait, what?
Those countries may have rearmed sooner and adopted an effective containment policy toward Hitler's expansionism.
Except that's... I mean, none of that makes any fucking sense. Because, first of all, Britain only got in, actually took a military posture against Germany when Hitler invaded Poland, a British ally. The U.S. never really felt any reason not to be rearming. I mean, amongst other things, that they were like fighting a war against Haiti. The U.S. has kind of constantly been at war with Haiti in one way or another since the U.S. was founded, practically. Well, no, not since then, because Haiti only became independent in, like, what was it, 1803? So, almost. Not... But, in any case, France was also certainly rearming. The only country that was actually had any restrictions on rearmament after World War I was Germany, as it happens. And Germany didn't give a fuck. They just kind of did it secretly, except everybody knew what the deal was. So, no, okay, this is already not making any sense.
So, World War II ends, and what did the internationalists do? They reran the experiment with better branding. While the world was reeling from shock and horror after the war, the UN was launched with the soaring promise to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Spoiler alert, that didn't work either. FDR had made the UN his legacy project. He coined the term United Nations for the anti-Axis coalition during the war. And then he sought a permanent institution anchored by something he called the Four Policemen: the UK, USSR, US, and China. He even mused about becoming the first Secretary General of the UN after concluding his term as the United States President. You may review those countries again. US, UK, USSR, like the evil Soviet government, and China, which at that time
as opposed to the
in fact
totally un-evil British and US governments, of course. Totally non-evil, those.
a communist government, but would shortly become one. Again, this whole idea was steeped in Wilsonian faith that if people just sat together in a room, then war could be managed like an HOA zoning dispute. But underneath all of the rhetoric was the same question. When international law, ill-defined international law,
and not, actually, it's not ill-defined. It's not undefined. It's very clearly defined, especially when it comes to who gets to actually use military force when. It is extremely well defined there, but the U.S. chooses to totally ignore it.
International law. Law as decided by a random agglomeration of nations. Voting. When that clashes with American constitutional law, who wins? For the people who fetishize the UN, the answer is not the American voter. So, who's actually in charge?
Well, I mean, the U.S. Voters in the U.S. have absolutely no say in any of this. Nobody asks. Well, yeah, I mean, and the idea was that the countries that won World War II and put down the fascist menace would be the ones who were in charge. Which sounds okay until you realize that, I mean, that means most countries really don't have a meaningful say in this organization, since any one of these 4 countries can effectively decide for everybody else.
Well, it's called the Security Council. There are 5 permanent members with veto. The US, the UK, France, Russia, then the USSR, and China. Why Russia? Well, because Stalin ended up on the winning side in 1945. That was after he started the war by joining the losing side, the Nazis.
Wait, after he started the war. The war started before...
The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and grabbing most of Eastern Europe. Why China? Well, because originally China was...
well, most of Eastern... No, like half of Poland. And Germany had already started the war by invading Poland. Now, the fucking Hitler-Stalin Pact was an absolutely disastrous decision on the part of the Soviet Union, and the apologetics that I hear people occasionally try to make for why this was actually, a way to prepare for a war that was definitely the Soviet government knew was coming. It just doesn't hold water, because so they signed this thing and then they didn't prepare. And they sent a whole bunch of German communist refugees back to Germany to be tortured and murdered by the Nazis, even though the deal, even though there was nothing in the pact that actually required it. They then proceeded not to prepare in any meaningful way. The westernmost front, the westernmost borders with Nazi Germany, the places that were going to be the front line initially in the event of a German invasion, were practically undefended. And Soviet intelligence actually managed to get a full set of invasion plans, accurate invasion plans, including when and where the invasion was going to happen, and Stalin and the Soviet leadership just ignored it. They did absolutely nothing with this information, but it absolutely checked out. It was indeed what happened, and if they'd done something with it, they might not have been completely overrun for the first year or two of it. But, so, yeah. But to say that the Soviet Union started World War II because after Germany started the war, they signed a non-aggression pact is nonsense, actually. I mean...
Chiang Kai-shek, who ended up as the head of Taiwan when he had to run to exile when Mao took over. So, built into the system from the first day, this genius idea, America's biggest adversaries would have veto power over all UN mechanisms. You want to do something about the Syrian government massacring its own citizens? Russia will shoot it down with a veto. You want to do something about China? Well, China is not exactly going to allow that to go ahead.
You want to do something about the United States committing a genocide in Palestine? Well, I mean, you can't because they have a veto.
Signing a police department where mob bosses get to sign off on all the raids. Even the logo is a tell. The UN emblem shows the Earth from above at the North Pole flattened out, with all the continents compressed, and the Americas shoved off to the side. The symbolism is deliberate.
They're not shoved off to the side. This is what it looks like from this angle.
UN emblem shows the Earth from above at the North Pole flattened out, with all the continents compressed, and the Americas shoved off to the side. The symbolism is deliberate. The global East and West are visually closer, no country more powerful than the rest. Well, after World War II, the Allies set up Nuremberg.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, and there's the thing. If that had actually been the way it was set up, so there really was no country more powerful than the other, that might have been one thing, but that's literally the opposite of what happened, precisely because... naturally, he completely leaves out the fact that the U.S. controlling the veto also makes it completely useless. But so far what he's made is a great argument against having the veto.
For crimes against humanity on the bizarre legal theory that was a mix of existing and new norms. In 1949, the updated Geneva Conventions were codified into...
Wait, okay, the bizarre legal... this is interesting. Is he trying to posthumously appeal the convictions of the Nazi leadership?
We now call them laws of war. How you treat prisoners, civilians, the wounded, and war-torn populations. While well-intentioned, they largely do the same thing. They codify a morality that in reality, pretty much nobody around the world actually shares.
Well, no. Just because the U.S. doesn't share it doesn't mean nobody does. I mean, just look at this war with Iran. Iran has been firing at military targets. The U.S. has been bombing desalination plants in primary schools.
then all of those laws are militarized against the very people who put them in place in the first place. And the big question is, who enforces these laws? The Nuremberg Nazis were prosecuted under international law.
Well, I mean, when you notice that he referred to them the Nazis being tried on a bizarre legal theory, so actually that's morally consistent. He seems to be saying that it was wrong to try them.
The truth is, the Allies could have just shot Hermann Goering upon winning the war and physically occupying Germany. The Geneva Conventions are a little different because they were signed by Congress as a treaty, which, again, that's how America adopts international law as domestic law. The UN, however, is doing
well, yeah, except the U.S. has never respected the Geneva Conventions.
Something entirely different, a standard of international law that does not exist. It is Sudan voting on what they think America ought to do. Secretary of State...
Oh, well, but, yeah, that is a standard of international law that exists. It's in the UN Charter, Ben. You can read it. That's why this body exists. It's fucked up that there is actually a Security Council where 4 countries can prevent any meaningful action being taken on anything they have an interest in. But it does exist. The standards are there. You can read them.
Marco Rubio has been explicit about this. Don't allow international bodies to rewrite American law under the guise of diplomacy. Now, UN defenders will trot out the same handful of successes. In Korea in 1950, the Security Council authorized force after North Korea invaded the South.
No, that is not what happened, actually. That is wow, that is literally not what happened. The Soviet Union vetoed an attempt to... Okay, so first of all, we got to back up, because the U.S. invaded Korea in 1945. Nobody invited them. Nobody wanted them there, and in fact, they then killed between 1 and 200,000 South Koreans in order to maintain their occupation there. Because people in Korea had this idea of forming an independent state after they kicked out the Japanese. And the US was not keen on that, so it wasn't allowed to happen. So, after 5 years of, terror and mass murder in the South, and increasing cross-border skirmishes, it's actually... Historians are not actually sure who actually fired the first shot in June 1950. Because there had been a whole lot of back and forth that, didn't actually go much anywhere initially before the North invaded the South. But also to say that it was an invasion is a bit weird because there was no international border. The U.S. did not recognize that as an international border. The puppet government in Southern Korea did not recognize it as an international border. The DPRK didn't recognize it as an international border. It was just a military demarcation line imposed by the United States. So when we say the North invaded the South, it's Korea invading Korea, and a lot of people in the South were actually happy to see them. So, but then the U.S., of course, wanted to escalate the war against Korea in order to stop this and make sure that their foothold on the Korean Peninsula was not lost. They tried to get something going in the Security Council. The Soviet Union vetoed it, and so they did an end run around the Security Council that is now immortalized in international law classes as the Uniting for Peace Resolution. See, the Uniting for Peace Resolution is the General Assembly, supported by the U.S., this is crucial, voted to say, when the Security Council vetoes a resolution to do something that the United States wants to do something about, that then the General Assembly can just do an end run around it. And since it was the U.S. doing this, that is treated as a change in international law, an innovation in international law. What it actually was a breach of international law, because there's nothing in the Charter that says that the General Assembly can do anything. And I personally think that's one of the things that's wrong with the Charter for the most part. But if you're going to defend the structure as a whole, then you have to actually accept the structure as it is, and the structure as it is does not allow this sort of an end run in order to escalate a colonial war against Korea. So, he managed to get everything wrong about that, including things that I would have expected him to kind of get right, like knowing what the Uniting for Peace resolution was and that the Soviet Union vetoed.
Over China Sea and weren't there to veto it. And by the way, it didn't matter. The U.S. had to spend all of the time and all of the money to secure South Korea in the Korean War. In the Congo in the 1960s, the mask slept.
No, actually, that's not true. It was not only the U.S. There was a multinational force. Britain and Australia contributed troops. There was also, amongst others, forget everyone who was involved in it, but a number of colonial powers joined in defense of the U.S. puppet regime there.
The UN operation got sucked into a civil war and a Cold War rivalry. The peacekeepers were incompetent. The idea of a neutral, technocratic UN peace force swooping in with their blue helmets to fix failing states starts to look like what it was, a fantasy. And during the Cold War, the Security Council spent most of its time doing nothing because, again, the US and the USSR were the opposite sides of the Cold War and both were on the Security Council. So America was built by people who worked hard and also slept well. If you are not sleeping well, you're not
Okay, if you're not sleeping well, I mean, if you listen to Ben Shapiro, that will probably help you sleep, because despite the fact that he is deeply disturbing, he is also very boring. So, Tim Pool, there's an outright, just straight up neo-Nazi movie out, banned in Germany. And, yeah, actually, banned in Germany because it is just so openly neo-Nazi. And both Weedlord and Tim Pool have things about it. So I thought, since we got another 10 minutes to go, we might have add a little bit of that. Weedlord knows why it was banned in Germany. Why Citizen Vigilante. That's what this extremely shitty Nazi movie is called. And he's like, I know why it was banned in Germany. Well, like, because it is literally a fucking genocide fantasy. It is, the hero is a mass shooter.
What does a crusade look like? What does a modern day crusade look like? I see
well, I mean, genocide, basically.
A lot of people calling for crusades. Seriously.
What's with the folded American flag there? Like,
we must restart the Crusades, the Muslim invaders. Like, the original Crusades was what? Pushing back the Islamic regime from Europe.
No, that's not what it was. Okay, so already this is what we're starting out with. Jesus Christ.
It was almost all but gone. It was like one city left, right? And then they slowly beat back the Islamic invaders and
there was one city left in Europe that wasn't controlled by the Islamic invaders? Like, what universe is this from?
And made Europe great again. I mean, right? So I'm curious, like, what does a crusade
Well,
look like
I mean, they murdered a huge number of Jews and Muslims who were not actually invaders. They went to the places they were from and murdered them there. Oh, I don't watch it. Like, no money should go to this thing.
It's not like we go up in full suit of armor and, charge across the field in our horses with our swords up in the air. It's like, this isn't medieval times. We're in the modern era. So what does that look like?
Oh God. Well, I mean, it looks like Nazi shit.
And I think about, like, so this movie, what is this movie? This is a man who gets so fed up with watching the West get completely raped by a custom that is okay with it, and teaching
raped by a custom
their children that it's okay, and that women are in the wrong for wearing short skirts, and they deserve to be raped. Like,
wait, okay, what?
This is the mentality that they have. So this is
that who has?
Entity that has had enough, that is going around and taking the law into his own hands. Well, what do you do when the law is protecting the people that are raping and killing you?
I don't know. Ask the Palestinians. They're the ones dealing with that situation. Yeah. I mean, nobody. When I say that this is a Nazi movie, this is very. I'm not exaggerating. This is some neo-Nazi shit. It is a very specific. It is a genocide fantasy, and it's not good. So, like, it should not generate any revenue at all. I'm sure if somebody wants to torture themselves with it, there will probably be a torrent that you can get so that you can look at it for free if you just want to subject yourself to that. But definitely don't be paying for this shit. Damn.
That seems to be the case. Look at the UK right now. I mean, that's actually happening. Germany. I mean,
no, I mean, those are two places where it's literally not happening.
They're banning this movie because they don't want their citizens to go, wow, this is exactly what's happening.
Oh, well, I think maybe they're banning it because I mean, in particular Britain, they had massive pogroms against just anyone with a slightly darker complexion within just the past couple of years.
Right now?
I mean, and actually, in the British-occupied sector of Ireland, they just had a massive pogrom like that. Incited, organized by British irregular forces in Ireland just a couple of weeks ago. So maybe the reason that they don't want to see that is because they already have shit burning down because of a bunch of Nazi fucks who have decided to be Latter-day Crusaders.
And the government's on the side of the invaders. We are being replaced, and the government is...
Oh, wow, holy shit. It's been a while since I looked at Weedlord, and he's just openly doing a great replacement now. This is not what Weedlord used to be like. I mean, he used to be very dodgy and fashy, but in like a sort of doofy, hippy-dippy kind of a way. Now he's just in a way where he mostly just wanted to talk about aliens or something, like extraterrestrials, I mean. And now he's doing a fucking great replacement. Jesus Christ.
And it's not worse protecting them and allowing them to happen. It's like they want the European Union, they want Europe to crumble. Why? Well, like, what is the reason? Honestly,
I mean, maybe everything that you're saying is bullshit. Like, literally, there's a competition in Europe to see who can have the most vicious anti-immigrant laws. Right now, one country after another is coming up with new ways to make life impossible for people who aren't from there. At the same time as they have a massive labor shortage caused in large part by their refusal to take meaningful steps to deal with the pandemic. I mean, so what he's talking about, like acting like these governments are all very sort of pro-ethnic minorities and pro-immigrants, I mean, that's just complete bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not that I expect anything less from Weedlord.
Do you know why? Let me know. Seriously, fill me in, because I'm at a loss at why these governments are allowing their own countries to be overrun and destroyed.
They're not. That's the answer. That literally is not happening. Of course, yeah. Of course he's not saying anything about those things. This guy used to be Tim Pool's sidekick. He's not going to be talking about capitalism and colonialism.
Movie, there's this scene where he's talking to a family where the sons have raped a girl, and he's in there confronting them. The sister who was there, she posted on social media that they deserved it. I mean, look. You know, the kid's like, we'll be better in the future. We're getting mental help. It's like, but...
that doesn't even make fucking sense.
Then you don't show any regret. He's talking to the daughter, and she straight up says they deserved it. They make boys horny with their short... And then he turns to the dad, and he goes, this is what you're teaching? And he goes, I teach the values from the Quran.
Like, do you realize, Adam Weedlord, that this is a script that somebody wrote? See, a racist guy wrote a script where all these people say fucked up bullshit because it came from a person who is paid to make fucked up bullshit. These aren't actual people, Adam. They aren't saying actual things that actual people say. This is not a scenario that plays out this way. This is the fever dream of a neo-Nazi.
And these values from our family. This is the energy that they have, though. They're allowed to lie to all of us.
Who is?
So anything that they would say to us, this is real. They're allowed to lie to any non-Muslim.
I mean, oh god, he's really gone deep into this stuff. He did not used to be like this. He used to suck then too, it's worth noting. But he has really leaned heavily into this. And the thing is, the stuff that they actually say in these sorts of circles about Muslims is largely plagiarized from the stuff that they also say about Jews.
Like, why would we believe that they want to be here and aren't invading, aren't trying to take over? I mean...
Oh, well, because they're literally not. Because that's not what an invasion looks like. Like, imagine being from the United States and not knowing what an invasion looks like. I mean, the U.S. does a lot of invading. You'd think you would have taken some notes. Like, that was, you know, when the U.S. invaded Iraq, for example, that was an invasion because they sent tanks and bombers and a huge number of troops and murdered a huge number of people and took all the shit. See, that's not the same thing as refugees going to a country and trying to live there. Like, the distinction is actually fairly clear.
If you look at the political landscape of Europe, and there's a lot of non-Europeans in control, and it's what
non-European. He means by fucking ethno-state standards. They are literally Europeans. They are European citizens.
Wild to see. In fact, let's bring America and Canada. It's like Mexico, pretty much all of the West, including Mexico, but whatever, you know.
Yeah, I'm including Mexico in the West, but whatever, you know. Well, no. Elaborate, Weed Lord. Tell us about why you immediately walked back on that.
The main countries in the West are all being co-opted by people that aren't from the West.
Like who? I mean, last I checked, Donald Trump was from the West. Mark Carney is from the West. Micheál Martin is from the West. Fucking Keir Starmer and his shitty mini-me Andy Burnham, also from the West. Friedrich Merz, what is he? Is that not a Western enough name for you? Friedrich Merz, Macron. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's like a lot of people have become complacent and are just letting it happen. People
letting what happen? Explain, give an example of the thing.
To be in power, they just want to be influencers. They want to be famous instead of actually understanding that reality is more important. And you're
well, okay, so reality is important, is it, Adam, Weed Lord? Sweetie, so why don't we talk about reality as opposed to just your fucking Nazi wet dream?
Kids are more important. I'm sick of seeing gigantic families taking over areas in places that I live, and I'm in the middle of...
Wait, what do you mean? What the fuck? Gigantic families taking over areas? Actually, the way he's wearing that backwards baseball hat... If you don't see him from the side, it actually kind of looks like a Muslim skull cap.
The force in Sweden. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like in Paris. In fact, I can't.
I mean, I can. It's actually rather nice. It's very hot there right now.
10 years ago, and I didn't see any French people. I lived in Paris. 25 years ago.
Well, okay, if you lived in Paris and you didn't see any French people, then you were hanging, that just says where you were hanging out. Because there are certainly places where you can go in Paris where all you will run into is Yank tourists and maybe a handful of the cringest French people. That exists. But you have to choose to do it.
Ago, in the early 2000s, and it was all French people.
It's still mostly French people. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Looked like you would expect a French movie would feel like.
Oh wow, that's his standard. He thinks that Emily in Paris is the default for what Paris is supposed to look like. Like what? Like Amélie or something like that? God, you know, I have to I have to find a way to draw Cassandra's attention to this, because I think he would take the piss out of this deliciously. Because like, what the fuck is he saying? I've been to France in, well, it's been a little bit more than a decade now, unfortunately. It was full of French people, because it's fucking France.
French people everywhere, smoking cigarettes, beautiful. It was awesome. I loved it. I got to see the last.
Wow, so that's all. He just wants French people smoking cigarettes. Wow, I mean, he has such a deep appreciation for the culture.
Vestige of Paris, the energy of what it was to have a French Paris. It's no.
What the fuck would you know? You what? Tu parles français, hein?
Longer French anymore. Now it's Moroccan, Egyptian, Middle Eastern.
Motherfucker! Wait, he did not know? Wait, he's talking about how France in the early 2000s, he did not know that there was a significant North African population there, because France invaded and occupied North Africa, and a lot of people came up from then. Like, he didn't. So the fact that he somehow managed not to know that Paris, in particular, has significant communities, has had them for decades, for nearly going on a century, actually. Large communities from countries that France invaded and occupied. And so he's like, wow, like, and now he's saying there's no French people. Wow, like, there was a fucking North African community in Paris during World War II. Fun fact, that North African community saved a whole lot of Jews. The main mosque in Paris actually issued false papers to members of the Jewish community, identifying them as members of the Muslim congregation, and that allowed them to avoid getting deported to their deaths. Like, he somehow, where the fuck was he in Paris that he did not know that there was, like, it wasn't just, like, what Paris was he in where he thinks it's all just people in, like, fucking horizontal striped shirts and berets smoking Gauloise, going, ha ha, ooh la la. Like, what the what fucking mushroom fantasy Paris is he using as his baseline here? But, you know, I should watch the movie about Edith Piaf. I love her music. But it is time for me to wrap up for tonight. Thank you to everyone who joined the stream. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then.